This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show tonight in Power Logic Studio, and Think Experiences presents Dark Side of the Nam, an exploration of Pink Floyd, benefiting the Watts Conservatory of Music. Here with bass virtuoso Tony Franklin and legendary drummer Carmine Appice. Tony, what is important about this charity benefiting the Watts Conservatory of Music?
The reason I'm here is for the kids and their families. I mean, free music education. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Plus, I've done quite a few gigs with the Think guys, with Scott Page, Stephen Perkins I've known for 25 years. We've done a lot of stuff together, so I have a connection that is beyond the music for them. We get together, we play music, we love each other, and we love playing music. And to do that for a great cause, I mean, what else could you do it for, you know?
Tony, why did you choose a fretless? Why did you make your career on that sound?
Well, I started off on the regular bass, and I say that the bass found me because, long story short, I was playing it, my mum was playing it before I was, and I was 11 years old, I was bored. My mum's band was having a rehearsal, I wasn't in on it, I was making a pest of myself, so my mum gave me this bass and said, hey, try this. 3 days later, I was playing gigs on it, so it was that instant. And then, so I was playing gigs on the regular fretted bass, and then Jaco Pastorius came along, who is the king of fretless, no longer with us, God bless him, but once I heard that, it's like, wow, I didn't know that a bass could do that, I had to have a fretless bass. And, you know, I'm a rock player, essentially, so I brought it into my genre and found that it just fit so beautifully, and I felt so comfortable with it. It became part of me, and so I love the expressiveness of it, I love the tone and the feel of it, and just the subtleties that it can bring to the music. It's like almost a different instrument from the regular bass. I liken it to the human voice. Imagine if the human voice had frets, had steps, it'd be very robotic sounding. And so we are very freely move up and down, and oh, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling up, I'm feeling great. That's how I see the fretless bass. I can just express myself however I want. I just love it.
You were playing with Roy Harper, essentially, when Jimmy Page discovered you and asked you to join the firm. Is this correct?
Discovered me. Well, I'd done a bunch of work with Roy before that point. Roy called me to do this album. It was in 1984. And Jimmy was going to play on it, and he and Jimmy go way, way back to the early 70s, and we're just hanging together. We're playing, having a lot of fun and vibing, and played a couple of gigs, and then Jimmy asked me, he said, would you like to sit in on the rehearsals of this new band we're putting together? It was very relaxed, very organic. I said, yeah, I would love to. It wasn't like, hey, there's this new supergroup that I'm putting together, we'd like you to be part of it and all that. It was just so relaxed. So, yeah, he discovered me playing with Roy, but it didn't feel like that. It just felt like we were hanging.
When you rehearsed the songs for the firm, tell me how different the original sound was in the studio compared to what ended up on the album, sound sonically.
There was really no difference in between the rehearsals. Everything was very raw and organic, and then we took that straight to the studio. And that's how we translated it to live. Nothing really changed. You hear some of those early rehearsal tapes from 1984. It sounds like the album. So it was what it was, and we captured that essence, which is beautiful. And then, as you do when you play things live, you expand it. You get more, and it's like you have more of a conversation. You like have an in-depth conversation about the music with each other. And so you're always exploring, which I love that about music, because it always evolves. So, but it was still essentially the same sound, very raw. It was always the three of us, the four of us, three of us musically. Paul would play piano and guitar and sing, but that was always it. I'd double on some keyboards too, and whatever the music needed.
What was Jimmy Page and Paul Rodgers' attitude about your input, songwriting-wise? I mean, I believe you have a song that you wrote on.
Yes. They were very open on every level. There was never any, oh, don't do that, or don't do that, or can you try that? I was very much left to it, which at that time, 22, 23, 24 years old, I was like, I didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, that's, I'm just doing my thing. We're a band. That's the way it works. But looking back, I'm like, wow, I was with Paul Rodgers and Jimmy Page at that age, They basically let me have a free rein and do my thing. Wow, how did that happen? You know, and so at the time, though, it just felt very natural. I brought some songs. For the first album, most of the songs were already written. And so, but I brought some songs forward for the second album, and they chose one, Dreaming, that ended up on the second album. So, incredible, really. It becomes more meaningful with time.
That song is, by some historians, is considered one of the best written songs out of both the records.
I have no perspective on it, you know, but it's great to hear that, but honestly, I have no perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a Bad Company song. Did Jimmy Page and Paul Rodgers ever tell you, we're going for this sound, this is what we want to do, this is what we see becoming of the firm?
No, it was always just us playing, and that was the sound. The only bass I took was a fretless bass, which is crazy in hindsight. I didn't take any other basses. Now if I'm going to sit in on with a supergroup or any situation, I'll take a selection of basses. I'll take fretted basses. I'll take, you know, different tunings. I'll take the fretless and all that. But then that's all I took. I was just going on pure instinct. They didn't say anything. It worked. I mean, Boz Burrell had used a fretless in Bad Co. John Paul Jones had used fretless on some songs with Led Zeppelin, so it wasn't alien to them. And of course, Andy Frazier was very young with Free as well. So I think I had things in my favor which I had no idea about at the time. I was just going on what I felt for the music. So there was no, this is what we're going to go for in the sound. There was no reference point. It's just, we play, that is the music.
Tell me the story behind the bass riff that you came up with for Radioactive, because it was so unique at the time.
It was one of those things that just, I felt, okay, here's a space in the song. The drums kick in, the acoustic kicks in. It needs something there. What can it be? And at some point, I played that part. I don't even know how it happened, to be honest. It's one of those. And it stuck. And it became one of the signature highlights, the hooks of the song. I wasn't even thinking about it. It's just one of those things that happened.
At what point during your time with the firm did you come to call Paul Rodgers, Jimmy Page, and Chris Slane your friends?
We were actually friends from the beginning. It was always that connection. Remember, when I was asked to go and try out, I wasn't asked to join the band. I was asked to sit in. I'd already been playing and hanging with Jimmy for a good few weeks at that point. I'm playing gigs. I don't think he would have asked me if I didn't think that I could play it. So they were just seeing if I could hang with it. I mean, 22 years old with these guys, legends. You know, they were in the late 30s, early 40s at that point. They'd done everything. So here's this kid. Can he hang? Can we hang with him? Can we be on the road together? Can we be in a studio together? Can we get along? And so, there was never a conscious we've clicked here. It just always felt very accepting and very natural and very comfortable.
How much do you think that has to do with who you are as a person and your personality?
I think it has everything to do with it. Now I'm slightly older and slightly wiser, and I've gone through things, and everything. There are a few ups and downs, and we all have hindsight, thinking, "Wow, I wish I'd done it that way." But at that time, all of us were just going on. They were fresh off Bad Co. They were fresh off Led Zeppelin. A lot of attention go to Jimmy because the first band after Led Zeppelin, and so there was a lot of pure instincts and just going with it and wanting to create something that was unique and special. So it all added up, and I was just going on youthful energy and wanting to do a great job. I didn't see that as like a career move. I didn't think like that. I was kind of naive, a little bit, I guess, simple in my ways. It was all about the music for me. And so I went into it just wanting to do a good job. And I think they enjoyed that. They enjoyed my vibe. And so, it's still hard to be objective about it 35 years later, to be honest. because your perspective changes, but you think, wow, how did that happen? Like, how did that happen to a 22-year-old from Derby, England, which is an industrial town? You know, it's all still surreal to me, but I have the pictures to prove that it happened. So.
Now, what was it like for a 22-year-old to be thrust into the public eye, extremely thrust into the public eye as a rock icon, and have to deal with the press and the reviews? What was that like for you, and how did you embrace that or reject it?
Wow, that's a great question. I honestly feel like I'd been preparing for it all my life. It's weird because it felt like that's where I was supposed to be. I was in the right place at the right time. I remember at 14 years old seeing a review of in a music paper called The Melody Maker in England, and I saw that Queen had played at Madison Square Garden. It was 1976. I had no idea what Madison Square Garden was, where it was, or what it was, but because Queen played there, I thought it must be cool. And I said to myself, with the deepest conviction, one day I'm going to play there, which we did with the firm. You know, and for 10 minutes of the night, bass solo is just me on the stage, crowd going nuts. And, you know, I'd always wanted to do that. And it wasn't even about being a rock star or the attention and all of that. It was just, I felt like I wanted to put my music out at that level. I idolized Queen at that time, and seeing them larger-than-life rock stars, you know, that was what I always wanted to do. So somehow I handled it, and it felt very natural.
What was the most endearing thing about Paul Rodgers to you, being on the road with him for probably almost 5 years, correct?
Oh, no, not quite that long. What was the most endearing thing? Wow, well, he's just his focus. I mean, I never heard him hit a bad note. I mean, it's like, you know, we all had different things going on in our lives, and sometimes we wouldn't have a good day. But when it came to showtime, it was like zoom, no matter what. And he was like the consummate professional, so focused, and, you know, never heard him hit a bad note. And also in the studio, I mean, in the first album, we were recording those tracks all in the same room. Paul Rodgers is behind a screen. He isn't even behind an isolation booth. He's on an SM57, which is a very... it's a very basic mic. You use that to mic a snare on a live show, right? It's not a high-end vocal mic. So those are intended as guide tracks, vocals. We ended up keeping most of them because they were so good. I mean, he's just a consummate professional.
And then what did you learn from Jimmy Page? What did you take away from him?
Oh, Lord, it's so much. So much. I mean, musically, God, where do you even start with that? I mean, I was privileged to be able to watch him produce and record and write and create in the studio, his mic placement, seeing how he laid down solos, I mean, and songwriting and structure. And I think probably just working in the studio was one of the biggest things, but there's so much. And it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. Songwriting and breaking down barriers with writing and coming up with parts that, you know, are just magical. There's so much.
How did you deal with the dissolution of the firm?
Wow, well, it was one of those things. I say the firm never ended. It just didn't continue. As far as I'm concerned, we're still together. But no, all seriousness, gosh, I was drinking quite a lot then, so it's I guess there was no mention that we'd ended. So I guess at some point, I kept busy, and then Jimmy started doing a solo album. I realized at that point, I guess we're done. So, you know, we went on to the next thing.
What was the next thing for you?
There were so many things. I mean,
the first big thing for you.
Gosh, a lot of little things, but I guess the first big thing was doing the album with Jimmy, Outrider. And that was bittersweet because it's a long story. But that was one of those lessons in communication on my part that youth and inexperience wasn't on my side. But it led to other things. It led to John Sykes and Blue Murder, and that's a whole other chapter.
Well, I want to know about that.
I knew nothing of John Sykes.
Really?
I got a call from Cozy Powell saying, hey, I'm working with this guy, John Sykes. He's recorded with Whitesnake, Thin Lizzy and all that. And actually, Cozy got my number because my cousin was working in John Sykes' studio up in Blackpool, England, and John was talking to them and said, hey, what you got going on? Oh, I'm doing a new thing, blah, blah. And I said, we're looking for a bass player. I said, oh, my cousin's is Tony Franklin. You know, he said, yeah. He said, do you have his number? And so I gave it to Cozy. Cozy called me. I went up and hung with them, and it felt great, and the rest is history.
Now, Cozy was the original drummer for Blue Murder.
Yes.
Now, why did he leave? Did he join Black Sabbath, or what was going on at that?
It's a mystery. One day he was there, the next he wasn't. He stormed out and never returned.
What do you remember about the sessions and the practices with Cozy Powell? What was enjoyable about those?
Cozy was amazing. He had a vibe that was he was a lot of fun. I enjoyed Cozy. And I knew him more from, no, actually, this single. You see, I'm so sheltered when it comes to music. I really was. And so I knew him through his single, Dance with the Devil. And so I did own Rainbow Live, but it's, I don't know, it never really hit me that much. So, but I knew of Cozy, and so it was great, but I could tell, look who's here. Look, how's this for timing?
This is perfect timing. Here we got two pieces of Blue Murder right here.
Hey.
So I was just telling him, he was finishing up how Cozy left the band. Right?
Yeah, Cozy left the band, and it never. There was a certain swing that the music had, which never really happened with Cozy. He's more of a straight-ahead kind of hard rock player, amazing player, but it wasn't right for the music. And so, we tried a bunch of players, and then
Carmine.
And then I heard that Cozy quit, so I went to England specifically to find them. And I went to Hammersmith Odeon when my brother was playing 3 nights with Dio. I said, there's got to be somebody there that knows how to get a hold of them. And sure enough, it was Chris Wells, the English journalist. He gave me a number to call. I rented a car. I called. They said, well, come on up. I drove up there. I listened to Aerosmith, Permanent Vacation, all the way up. It was like, 3 hours from London?
yeah, about that.
And then he met me at the hotel at like 3 in the morning.
Whatever. Yeah.
He comes down. And he goes, would you like a drink? And I didn't really drink. I said, sure, I'll have a drink. He crawled under the bar, and we opened the bar, and we had a drink, and the next day we got up. We went on the boardwalk to a music store. Remember that?
I don't remember that.
Yeah. And then we went back to John's house, smoked some hash. Remember that?
I remember that.
And then we started playing. I was playing Cozy's drums, and it was like magic. I brought the groove they wanted and the technique, and I was more of a technician than Cozy.
It's the swing, it's that groove, it has a swing to it, which is it's like a big band feel, really, but in a heavy way.
Yeah, and John Sykes said to me, we played with Cozy and all these different guys. You got so many drum fills. He said, Cozy always did the same few. He goes, you just got them, they just keep coming. I said, yeah, I just come whatever comes to my mind, So
What was John Sykes' work ethic like?
Next question, please. No, he was great. He was great at that time. He was very focused and hungry and willing to prove himself because
ready to kick David Coverdale's ass with a band.
He didn't get the credit that he deserved from Whitesnake, so he had a lot to prove. So he was hungry.
Yeah.
What were the highlights of that time for both of you guys? I'll start off with you. The highlight of being in Blue Murder.
Just making a killer album and touring all around America and Japan and just having great times. It was all about the music and good fun.
Carmine, what stands out to you?
It was the music. Playing with these guys was a real highlight because it gelled so great, and we knew we had something. I mean, I would have bet my house, if you would have said that ain't gonna make it, I would have bet you my house that it was gonna make it, and you would have won.
Yeah.
But one of the highlights of our trip was Japan. We didn't expect it so big. We went there the first time. We had 12,000 people to see us, and it was magic. And I see videos of it on YouTube. I go, oh my God, we were like unbelievable. We were so tight and so energetic and so technical. And like Sykes' solos, Tony with fretless, and my playing, we were like animalistic. We really were. And that's why people want to see this band, but we can't get John out of the house.
Do you talk to John at all?
Yeah, regularly.
Does he want to go on tour? I mean, we saw John last year at the NAMM show, and he said he was going to have a new album out, and to call him when it came out.
Yeah, there's been some issues with the label. I don't know the full details, but yeah, I know more.
No,
I know more.
I just found out more. We just signed with that label, but we got Tom Vitorino with us. Anyway, it's two sides of the story.
Yeah.
You know?
Welcome to the Eric Blair interview.
Anyway, I saw John last year at the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, and he told me he was going out with Tony and this little kid drummer, and he said, the kid wants to meet you. I met him. So he said the album's coming out, they're going to tour, and I said, good, when that's all done, then let's do Blue Murder. He said, okay, but now nothing's happened. It's been a year.
It's hard.
You know, there's so many dynamics to the story, but it doesn't have to be so complicated. You know, we could just get out there and play music.
Well, you know what? Everybody misses John Sykes.
Immensely. I think one of the things with John is that, you know, he has a problem embracing the new business for what it is, and it is different, and you do have to embrace it, and you know.
Well, he was always like more into the creative part, and the business part he always left to other people. And like I know when we were together, he would always ask me, what about this, what about that? So I'm sure he's having a problem embracing the business now. We all are, really, a bit. I mean, I can't believe the way the business is. I've seen it change, you know, from 52 years ago, you know. So I'm sure that's part of it with John.
The dissolution of the band.
It had kind of run its course.
It didn't make it, and it just kind of fell apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I'll catch up with you guys. You're amazing. You know I love you. You're amazing. Both of you. It is an honor
This
to
is
be.
my favorite.
I know. This guy is a kind guy. I've known him for 20 years.
No, I'm talking about music.
Oh, yeah.
He's an asshole otherwise. I love Tony. He's been like family to me. He used to come to my family's Christmas parties. He wrote poems for my kids when they were little. You know, I knew them.
Carmine's been there, you know, when we had the big earthquake in '94 in Northridge. He was the first one to come by and help us out and store stuff in his garage and everything. So we go deep.
We go deep.
The Blairing Out Show.